Hello, welcome to the stream. As you can probably figure out, we're painting a red dragon today. Get that music down a little bit. So this is what we got. This is a Reaper miniature I picked up a while ago, a couple years ago. Actually, before I started painting minis. I've been running D&D games for a long time, so getting some new miniatures was always something I like doing. But I didn't really know what I was doing painting-wise back then, so I handed this off to a friend who offered to paint it, but they were unable to finish it. And now that I have a few skills of my own, I'm going to take a crack at finishing it up. So we got some paints we're working with today. We've got some Army Painter stuff. We've got Dragonfire Red. We've got Cambium Crimson. And we also just have a Vallejo Flat Red. I'll probably be using those a lot. I guess I should describe the color scheme. I'm going to be going with red on the scales and probably the top of the wings. But for any of the plates, any of the fins, and any of the claws, I'm going to go with a light tan. And my normal method is to paint in kind of a 10-30-60 split, where about 10% of the model is one color, 30% is another color, and 60% is a final color. And my red's going to be my 60, my tan is going to be my 30, and then black is going to be my 10. Obviously, there's going to be some shade differences in there as well. But that's where we're starting. So the plan is, as I said, tan on the plates, tan on the fins, and then also tan on the bottom of the wings, red on the scales, black for highlighting. What do you want to call that? Yeah. So as I said, I had some Army Painters, some Vallejo. I've got a Kobold Red, which is actually very purpley, as a darkener for my reds. That seems to work really well. Then I've got a flat brown and an orange from Vallejo to work on making a tan, if I need to. I'm still learning a lot of color theory and stuff like that, but I found that using orange using brown to get a tan doesn't necessarily do what you want, at least for me, but using a little bit of orange in there really does help, so I like doing that. Obviously, got my whites and my blacks, and if I can cheat, I've got some tans here, mostly skin tones, that I can try to use if I don't want to try to mix my own tans. But that's where we're starting. We're listening to some Miracle of Sound, some Gavin Dunn. We're in the middle of his Vistas album, but we'll be moving on to some of his newer stuff in a bit. But yeah, let's get started. So this has already been primed, and yeah, it's already been primed, and it's got this initial red base coat down. So I think we'll try to block in the red and see where that takes us. So I've been doing a lot of glazing techniques recently, but this model is big enough that I don't think I want to try to glaze all of this by doing, a dozen layers to build up a color. So I'm going to start with this Cambium Crimson. I'm going to thin it down a little bit. Not a huge amount, though. And I am going to be pretty liberal with the application here. I'm not liking the feel of this brush. We'll give it a try. And we're going to start going over this again because as much as I like the red that's already here, there's some shadows where I wouldn't have put them. And it's not, I don't want to try to match the shade, so I just want to paint over everything. So, oddly enough, this looks to be a similar shade. That's a little darker. The Cambium Crimson is actually a very cool, almost bluish red. And I normally don't use it, but I'm trying to use it as a base coat here that I can build the brighter reds up around. Now doing all of the glazing that I've been doing recently, I have learned the value of really thinning your paints and doing repeated layers. Now normally the glazing I've been doing, you do that a lot, like over the course of a bunch of like a dozen layers or so. But on something like this, I think I can just get away with, 2, 3 thinner coats that have been thinned down. And we'll see where that takes us. Right now, I'm just trying to get my own shade on here. Painting over the shadows. Try and get an even coat. Well, thankfully, it actually probably doesn't matter if I miss a few spots, just because it's red, and that's going to still be a decent base coat regardless. I think I may actually have too big of a brush here, but I don't want to use too small of a brush that's too delicate, because I really want this to go faster than not, because this is a pretty reasonably sized model and I can clean up mistakes later. So I think I've gotten through most of this. It's actually kind of hard to tell where I've painted already, because the shades of red are pretty similar. Which makes me think I may not even have to do this all that much. I'm getting the second layer on over here. Okay. I do not want the paint to pool. That's not going to be fun. So I'm definitely going to be marking this off a little bit, or wiping it off a little bit. I don't know how useful this will actually be in the end, but I wanted to at least give it a quick brush down. Also, like, this paint's probably, I don't know, maybe even a year old. And so I just wanted to make sure there was a fresh coat of something on it. These shadows right here are bugging me a little bit. I'm going to try coming those up a little bit more. We'll see. Get the inside of these legs. Okay, now I do want to do the tops of the wings. So I'm going to do that real quick. And this is where it's going to be nice to have some some thinner applications here. I want to build up some color. This white base, this is really going to make this red a little purple looking. That's fine. The plan is to just build this up with thin coats later. So, sorry if my hands are getting in the way. It's kind of hard to always paint from an angle that the camera isn't in. I first started painting these bigger models, and it kind of ruined me for painting little regular like character models, because I always ended up giving myself way too much paint because I'm used to having to paint these big broad surfaces. So go. I'm gonna have to let this dry a little bit. Let's see. That's good for now. It's a little tacky still. I'm gonna get some fresh paint on here. I think I actually even watered this down a little bit too much the first time. Time for that second coat. Now this is interesting. There's some pretty distinct ribbing on this wing. And if you cross brush it, it really captures the paint in it. It's interesting to me. But then again, it's also taking its sweet time to dry. So, we'll see. I said I wasn't planning for this to take a long time of just building up layer after layer, but that may be what I end up having to do, just to get a good stain going. There we go. Let's see. While that's drying up there, I'm actually going to try a little bit of a smaller brush and going to try to hit up the shadows. Ah. Got at least one person hanging out. Hello there. Feel free to say hi in the chat. Half the reason I do this is to talk to people in chat, so feel free. Right now I'm just trying to catch these shadows. I tend not to put too much shadows in my stuff, or if I do, it's later on, and I want to put them in myself in this case. Like I said, I'm working with something that somebody else started, and I want to put my own touch to it. Not sure if this red is actually opaque enough to do what I want to do. Okay, let's try these wings again. relatively dry. Man, the crevices are not wanting to dry at any speed, so they're just smearing, even though I'm using very thin, very dry coats. I don't know what to do. The paint is not holding on to the primer. That's frustrating. Okay, so what do I do here? That is the question. So I don't have time for the individual little crevices to dry fully before I need to put another coat on. Those recesses will take a wash pretty nicely. I'm thinking of doing kind of a black wash at some point. I do like how there is a color differential between the scales and the wings. That's going to look nice ultimately. Yeah. Well, I may just have to take the wings nice and slowly and do stuff in between them. So, let's flip this around. Let's do the underside of the wings. And we're just going to try with this Untitled brown as a base coat, and then take the goblin skin, which is darker, for maybe some textures. Actually, shouldn't I start? I should probably start with the darker color. I don't even know which one's darker. We shall find out. Shake your paints, dude. There we go. Okay, so it looks actually like the goblin skin is more yellow, and the Untitled brown is more tan. So we're going to start with the Untitled brown. Thin it up just a little bit. Actually, that was way too much thinning. Want a little bit of stiffness here. There we go. My hope is that this takes a little bit better. Now, normally I work with 3D printed models, and the paint actually holds on to that pretty well. But no, these resin cast models, and having to use like a primer on a resin cast model just never seems to work well for me. Okay, that's looking okay. I'm liking this Untitled brown. This is a good tan color without having to mix my own. I'm just gonna try a little bit thicker, a little bit more sloppy. I'll clean up the edges with red later with a detail brush. think... Is this actually taking this better? I think it is. Yeah, I think this primer's taking this brown a little bit better. I don't know what it is about red, but it's just hard to work with. Doesn't layer the way that you think it should. It's really transparent. Not nearly as opaque. And it carries the color that is under it, it carries a lot of. So something I like doing is, or I found I like doing is starting with that Kobold Red, which turns out being a little bit more purple, and starting there. And that oftentimes gives the red the saturation it needs, instead of picking up kind of the tan. You know, I think while I'm here, let's see. Actually, no, I'm gonna stick to this. That's a good song. It's called Wake the Wolf. It's inspired by the Witcher 3 game, which is very, very good. Not the most family-friendly of games, shall we say, but it's still very well made. Alright, just trying to build this up. I'm gonna let that dry for a second. Okie dokie. I start working on these red wings again. I think that's what I'm going to have to do, is just alternate between the top and the bottom of the wings. Is my red just too thin? Might be too thin. Feels too thin. That might have been my problem. This sign. Hey, I may have just had my paint too thin. You know, I like blaming those types of mistakes on being a newbie and not exactly knowing what I'm doing, but eventually I'm gonna run out of those mistakes, or run out of that excuse. But I mean, there's always time and opportunity to learn. So, I don't know. Just because you're a forever student doesn't mean you're a forever newbie. So maybe my excuses will run out eventually. Oh man. Okay. So this is one of my favorite songs that Miracle of Sound does. It's called Amnesia. And he wrote it for a friend. I can't remember if the song is about his friend, or if it's for his friend's daughter. I can't remember. But they went through a pretty rough time, and he never really shared the details, but judging from the main lyrics of the song, I'm assuming that there was some accident or something like that with involving Amnesia. But it's just a super uplifting song, super encouraging, and is bopping as well. Okay, let that red dry. We go back here. Let's try that. Man, this paint is not wanting to stick. Not sure if I'm just not letting it dry enough. Yeah, man. I'm just getting like sections where it's just not wanting to go. So this red up top is pretty bluish, and I don't want it to be blue. I would like it to be as red as possible. So I'm going to pull out some of this flat red Vallejo and see how that goes as a layer on top. See if that helps saturate at all. See, this red is a little bit more rusty, a little less saturated. But it is more on the brown side, so we'll see. Definitely rusts it up a little bit. But I don't want a rusty dragon. I want a vibrant dragon. So, yeah, that really doesn't do what I want to do. Man, we're gonna have to do some experimenting today, it looks like. And yet again, I am dealing with paints that are not drying. Man. These paints are not liking me today. Okay. Flat red, it's out. Don't like it. Not gonna work today. Dragonfire, however. Now that's more of what I'm looking for. Yeah. That Dragonfire red is way more saturated and just less, a little less blue. That's looking better. Okay, so what happens? Ooh, there we go. That's taking... That should work. That's taking the taking the rust and the blue out of the under layers and brightening it up. I like that a lot better. I am really dabbing off my... Ah, man, see, there it goes again. Not sure how well you can see, but right in here, right in that little crevice, there's... The paint is not sticking. And I think it's because it's not drying very fast, but I don't really have the time to let it take its sweet time about drying all the way out. It does look better though. Okay, so what do I do about down here? See, we're back to this tan. It's just not going on thick enough to cover the base coat. Yeah, this is gonna be interesting. Okay, so this is gonna be a little bit weird, but nothing that I'm trying here is really working the way that I want to. So time to start doing some funny business. So something that I've learned with red is if you really want it to be vibrant, base coat it orange, and then put a bright red over it. And that's the plan. And so, considering I want the wings to be a different shade than the body itself, but probably lighter, I am going to try to do some base coats here and some orange. I'm going to put it on pretty thick, not even going to water it down. Because I want this to actually get into the recesses and get into those nooks and crannies. And the reason I think the orange does this is that the orange goes on pretty thick, it's pretty saturated, and a very thin layer of red over the top of the orange does a really good job of pulling out the highlights. Or excuse me, what am I even saying? Starting with the orange gives the red the saturation it needs, while the red gives it the actual shade. And that looks kind of weird, but I'm pretty sure this is going to work out well. I think this is also going to help with those little holidays I have in those cracks where the red just keeps getting brushed away. Because I'm putting on some pretty thick layers of orange here. And what I'm finding here, this is kind of interesting. When you paint with the grain, it gets into these little crevices, but when you go parallel, it does a really good job of only catching the highlights, which means this is going to be a real dream of a dry brush later. Okay, so let's just let this dry up a little bit. Catch these edges a little bit. You know, I'm actually kind of wondering what happens if we base coat orange and then put that Odiug brown over it. That could be really interesting. Now let's try that. Let's see. How do I want to test that? Hello, Lucky Jade. So I finally get you to make a YouTube account. Woohoo! Well, welcome to the stream. Glad to see you. Feel free to chat. That's half the reason why I'm doing this, so I can hang out with people. So, alrighty. So, catch you up to speed a little bit. We've been having problems with our paints, and so I decided to go with base coating orange, which will take a red layer eventually. Because for some reason my paints are not wanting to stick and are too thin. And under the bottom here, I'm trying to do these tan wings, which is going in the right direction, but again, I'm running into that same problem where the kind of the gray primer is just peeking through, even though I put like 6 layers on this thing. So I think we may go with an orange base coat under here with tan, but I'm just gonna have to trust that it works. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. Something else I've also found is kind of an interesting combination is if I'm having a hard time getting rid of the primer color, is I'll do this with, say, when I'm trying to paint yellow or white, is like I'll primer white, I'll put a layer of yellow down, and then I'll put white on top of the yellow, and for some reason that just does so much better job of binding and actually getting a saturated color. So I'm hoping here that with the tan that I'm working with, then covering it with orange, then covering it with tan again, I'll get the actual color that I want. Go. There we go. We're gonna be a little more aggressive with this orange. I do not have time to tippy-toe around this. You accept and you acknowledge. Mistakes will be made, but that's why you have a cleanup step. There we go. There we are. So I'm assuming that this model will probably show up in my D&D game at some point. It's kind of interesting. I don't know. The relation of like dragons and myth and stuff like that, like where it came from, like makes you think, what was out there that made people make such a mythical creature? And then ultimately, like, why did it stick around? Like, what is it about dragons that has made it stay so relevant? I mean, like, it sounds kind of silly, but like, why didn't a dire hippopotamus become the monster of choice? And it's not like, I mean, there's something snake-like about it, and most cultures have snakes, so maybe there's that. But like flying, fire-breathing, you know, what made this show up around so many cultures? Really interesting to me. Like what creatures like got the lore that they got? Like, why are owls wise, so to speak? Like, what made that a thing? Their eyes? And the idea of observation, perception. Owls having these big eyes that can see at night, and how they'll just like stare at you. I don't know. It makes you wonder. Let's see. Are we going here? Just checking the stream here real quick. Okay, there we go. It was showing me some weird data from this end. Okay, so how are we on tackiness down here? A little tacky. We're basically fine here. Okay, so we're gonna try to get this tan on here. Not too thick. Just some thin coats. Build up from the orange. How's that going? I feel like we are too thin. I think with a couple layers of this might work. Not sure. Not sure I like that. Well, the tan may not be working on the bottom. Let's see what the red looks like up top. Ah, man, I keep wearing off the paint up here. Ah, there we go. Okay, at least the top of the wings are working. That touch of orange base coat really did what I wanted it to, and gave a saturation to the red that I'm putting on now. And with just another layer or two, this brighter red will definitely come through. There we go. I like that. That looks pretty good. Hey, something actually worked. I hope that this is not one of those models, so to speak. Okay, so I was going to have tan be on the bottom side, but tan is not working so well. So I may end up just doing a red on the bottom side and see how that goes. Yeah, I think we're gonna do red on the bottom side. Man, I keep knocking the paint off there. Oh, that's not gonna look well. Man, gross. Man, Under the Wings is not working right now. I'm gonna have to think about this. Okay. So this kind of silvery gray primer is giving me some problems. The orange did not do what I wanted it to do under the tan. Man, I don't have any other color to really... Or I don't have any other model to really make this work or test this out. Just trying to do a little touch up while I think what I need to do. This is actually my preferred brush, but it's more of a detailed brush. There we go. really want to get that tan, but I don't know what the base color I need so that the tan doesn't look washed out. And I don't have another model of this type to play around with. The red here just ends up looking desaturated. Man, this is a conundrum. And that almost looks yellow there. I don't know. At this point, I need to start coming with something that sort of works. And if all else fails, the underside of the wings are not the most visible part of the model, and I may just need to do something that's mostly works and then go with something else. What I might do this doesn't look too bad. I really need to get some new paint, some new reds, because the reds I work with never quite get the shade that I want. They take a lot of effort to work with. I want something that's just a little bit easier. Something I can just slap on and have it work. That may be a pipe dream, but, I mean, one can dream, right? The final weapon in my arsenal is this Kobold Red, which is kind of a purple. It's great for darkening reds. It's great for a base coat for reds. Honestly, I probably should have started with that. But a pretty thick layer of that could reset everything. It's pretty saturated. And another favorite of mine, this song called Perseverance, and it's just such a great high energy song. Okay. That is not great. But it is a different tone than the rest of the dragon. It's a little lighter. That may be all I can really ask for at this point. I don't really want to be using this small brush right now, but all my bigger brushes are either destroyed or a little too stiff, and this softer brush that can just like get in there feels like what I need. So I just need to try to paint with this small brush as fast as possible. So right now, I'm less in doing what I wanted and more just trying to salvage the mistakes that I made. And honestly, this may turn into a strip the paint and try again type model, but we'll see. We'll see where this goes. Need a little more red here. I mean, Jade, this is not super hard, let's be honest. I need a little bit of water in this. I do have one teeny tiny brush that you would approve of. It's right here. Teeny tiny. It does all my little fine details. Okay, well, I am glad you approve. Well, okay. There is some reddish-orange wings. There's not nearly as much contrast as I would like. But we tried to do tan. It didn't work. So, how do we do tan again and make it work? What is... Well, basically brown is the base color of tan. Brown and or orange. So maybe we actually try to mix our own. I think that's what we do. So, time for some color theory, which I know nothing about, so let's go. So we're going to start with some brown. Then, we're going to go with some orange. And throw a little water in here to help with the mix. We're going to get this kind of light, warm brown here. Liking the look of that. Then, I think what we just do... Good to have you. Glad you could come watch for a little bit. So yeah, we're going to throw some white to this. Hopefully, if I remember correctly, this will lighten up. Wow, that is goopy. Let's get some water in here. Okay, so this is getting there. It's not bad, but it does not have the tan color that I want. So this is where I think we start putting in some more of that orange. Because this is not a very warm brown. Let's throw some more orange in here. I definitely need to thin this up quite a bit so it actually mixes. This will warm it up quite a bit. I'm trying to make this in a pretty small batch, but kind of by necessity of the paint ratios, there's only so much I can do. Okay, so this is a much warmer version, which I really like, but it's still too dark. Let's throw some more white in there. Man, this white is real gloopy. You know what? Why am I using my nice brush to mix this? Come here. There we go. Okay, so we're looking at a pretty nice color here. I think for a base coat, this is not bad. So we're gonna try this. Time for new. I don't even know what to call this. Towel? Wet rag? I'm not exactly sure. There we go. So let's start with this front crest here. And we're just going to see what it looks like to put this on here. Now again, I would normally try to be thinning some of this stuff, but it's already been wetted down quite a bit. Ooh. So what you're telling me is that I needed to just mix my own paints from the beginning. Shocker. It's even covering the red spillover pretty well too. I think with just a little bit of a little more white in here or something like that, I could get some highlights here that would make this work really well. Now I think this is actually too dark for what I'm looking for, but I think this is the appropriate base coat to then start building up. Now, the problem though is that we've got some real fine detail in here. Not super fine detail, but it's hard to reach detail. Okay. Okay, I'm liking this. This is working better. Let me make sure to catch these under edges. Man, these are some interesting angles to get. Can you still see that? Yeah, you can. Okay. I think what I'm going to do is finish up this first application. I think at this point I can go over it again and start doing a second coat. What this is going to do is get a nice saturated base coat that I can then glaze and layer up highlights on. For a long time, I haven't really known how to do a red dragon. I've been going with almost like a red, orange, and black, and it looks... well, it looks good. It just wasn't like the classic look that I was looking for. And I started really looking at the classic art for red dragons, especially D&D art. And I found that a lot of it is actually a tan that is the light is kind of the light spots, like the crests and stuff like that. Or previously I had done like orange and yellow, which is cool, but there's no like contrast between colors. It all just kind of looks like one uniform shade. Oh, I'm kind of off the camera, aren't I? There we go. That looks pretty good. So I'm actually going to take this opportunity to start base coating some of the other spots that I want to go tan. Yeah, see this is the base coat I needed. I think what I'm finding is starting dark and building up highlights is at least how I like to work these. There we go. I'll do some second layers. Wait a second. Are these actually claws? These may not be claws. I don't think these are claws. We're gonna see if we can wash these off a little bit. There we go. All fixed. I think what I'm going to do... yeah, so I'm going to make a second pot here of white. Okay, there we go. I was trying to clean up my white pot. I'm going to drop that over there. And we are going to thin this out a little bit. And throw in some of this kind of mud pie color that we've got here. And this is pretty bright, but the plan to thin this enough that we can start basically glazing this. We'll see how this works. So basically, you load up your brush it off, and then let all the color basically get pulled out of it. And then you've got a thin layer on here. Now I'm seeing here that that's actually too white. So we're going to scrub that off a little bit. I'm probably gonna put another layer of brown on there to clean that up. But this needs to be darker. And this is where I wish I knew more about color theory and how to basically lighten this up, maybe without using white, because that kind of desaturates it. Okay, let's try this. Still too opaque. Jeez. Can we make this thinner? That's a good song. A little creepy. Okay. Legitimately, I think this needs more orange. Actually, wait a second. Wait, I think that's making the basically the base coat color that I want. So I'm almost dry brushing this, even though, well, I'm using the kind of the dry brushing technique of just dragging it along and not really trying to paint each individual thing, because I'm trying to just lighten up the sections, well, kind of the flat sections, without touching the darker sections. Okay. Brought me up to a color that I like a little bit better. This is where we have some weird, really interesting stuff. Because we may actually be wanting a pretty orange color here. So we take this orange and white, thin it out, this is interesting. It's weird. It looks very orange on my palette, but when I actually put it on the model, it almost turns a very unsaturated tan. I don't know. It's building up some layers. Not exactly the tan I was looking for, but it's making for some interesting colors. I want a little bit of orange, a little more orange in here will do. There we go. That's the orange that I'm looking for. But is it the right orange? Because just because it's the one I was looking for doesn't mean it's the one that I actually need. Makes for kind of an interesting, curious look. Not gonna lie. Yeah, that orange is a little bit too... a little too orangey. So let's put a little more white back in there. Mix that up. A little more white. So whether we're actually done with this or not, I'm probably going to call it around 3. Just to give myself a little bit of time before I go back to work. There we go. Yeah, this is more the tan I was looking for. Now, the funny thing is that as I'm doing this, I'm building up these layers of colors, and they're not perfectly covering each other. So I'm getting these fun layers of dark tans, orangey tans, light tans as I'm going, which is, I find kind of interesting. So, this seems to be working pretty well. I would love to get this guy off the base, but I don't think I can do that. I'm going to try... I'm going to try and do this guy's face. And that's going to be interesting. So, if I can get this guy's basically entirely base coated by the time we're done today, I'll be happy with that. And then maybe I'll come back and try to do some detail work, or just work on some of my off time and try something else next week. But you know what? We're just trying all the experiments today. We're going to pull out some of this Kobold Red, aka purple. And we're going to try to base coat this, at least on the face. And see how this goes. And the reason I'm doing this color is I can build up a nice and saturated red off of this. Now, will it match the rest of the dragon? I don't know, but that's kind of why I was trying to unify the paint scheme with a few coats to begin with. see. Make sure we have enough layers in here. This is definitely a hard part of the model to reach. Wondering if I should... Oh man, you can't really see what I'm doing here. I can barely see what I'm doing here. Thin the paints down so they're a little bit more runny and actually reach all the spots I can't reach. My sister teaches watercolor and is quite good herself. And I sat in on many a watercolor class. And, well, I wish more would have rubbed off on me. I did pick up a few things. And so, the way paint behaves, especially watering it down and stuff like that, I feel like I have a little bit of a baseline that I can kind of reference. But nothing beats actually just messing around with it. Actually, I like the idea of this purple as being the inside mouth color. Okay, buddy. How am I doing here? Should you really be using a big brush? But man, this is just the one that works the best for me. Okay. This may take a minute to dry. I do not feel like this primer is helping me hardly at all. Now this is looking kind of blotchy, and that's normally a bad thing, and it may still prove to be a bad thing, but something that I'm noticing, which could be cool, is that might actually give some cool skin texture. Let's paint up the inside of your mouth. You know, it's actually Warhammer that got me into painting, 40K specifically. I never really liked the look of D&D painted models, like little character miniatures and stuff like that. And then I started watching battle reports of Warhammer 40K, and I saw some very well painted models. And I went, wait a second, that's what this can look like? You know, even though it's Space Marines and Space Elves and Space Orcs and Space Bugs, you can... There was still enough there that I could see the parallel. And so I started doing dragons and armor and monsters and creatures and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah, this purple's doing a good job here. Back on camera. Nice. Wow, that one's almost turning a yellow color. Weird. Okay. I'm gonna take this start working on this crest. Sorry for the camera angle, but this is kind of the angle that I need to work at. Honestly, I probably should have sub-assembled this, because the wings attach. I could have painted those. Ooh, my train of thought went absolutely stopped. I could have painted the wings separately, and that would have really helped on areas like this. But I didn't. I always forget that subassembly is a thing and is quite helpful. Okay, not bad. Ooh, I think this angle's gonna be a lot easier to paint at. Oh, look at that. I can see, you can see, we're all happy. Well, I can feel my eyes starting to bug out a little bit. May have to take a little bit of a break. Well, this may not be the tan that I was looking for, but it's working pretty well with the red. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break, stand up, walk around, let my eyes refocus. I'll be back. Enjoy the music. Okay, we had a little stretch. Let my eyes focus on something that wasn't 6 inches in front of me. We're gonna keep going. Okay. I think I've got some decent paints going here. So this brown is kind of, I don't know, I want to call it comic booky. Like, it's really saturated. And isn't a very natural looking color. But it's doing what I need it to do in the sense of being that base layer of saturation I need. To make sure that everything else like goes on nicely. I've got a good base coat to build everything else up from. This means I'm going to have to be doing multiple layers on a lot of different things. But my hope is to just get the all the base coats done today. This may be one of those, in 40K terms, get it to the point where it's table ready, and then leave it until I want to work on it again. Go. That's a fun little flare on the end of its tail here. Okay, let's get these insides here. Okay. That was looking pretty good. You know what? You know, I feel like what this tan needs is actually a little bit of yellow. But before we do that, let's get another quick layer on this face. Catch any holidays, some thin spots. Oh, missed all that right here. Come here. I want to try to clean up some of these little spots on the edges here that kind of got missed with going through things so quickly previously. There we go. That looks a little better. Now, the main problem I'm running into here actually is just the colors being flat, and I'm gonna have to figure out how to add some depth to them, whether it's with a wash or whatever. Okay, this purple head is grating on me, so I'm gonna see if I can get this to where I want it pretty quick. So what we're just gonna do, get some red. We're gonna make this nice and thin, and we are gonna glaze the behookers out of this guy. I don't think that is thin enough. It's wanting to gloop. There we go. Let that wick away. There we go, that's better. So I'm basically just trying to glaze this. Very little paint on the brush. And take this purple to a red. Now, I'm not sure what's going on here. My paint is glooping more than I would think and anticipate. But I just want to try to build it up, especially on the ridges. And the purple will act as a natural shading in the recesses. And already, this has gone from, oh, that's a hideous purple that conflicts with the rest of the model, to, oh look, that's a red head on a red dragon. Neat. Actually, I have an idea. Instead of using this tiny little brush, I'm going to pull out one of my big messy ones. And I'm basically going to try to, not exactly dry brush, but sort of dry brush on and the point is to just build up layers, really catching the high points. That's actually turning out really well. See, it's amazing what proper base coats do. I should never try to take shortcuts. Don't put red straight on the primer. Man, I really like this kind of textured, almost marbled look. Actually, I'm curious what will happen. I kind of do the same thing over here. That works. Get some highlights. So I guess I'm just dry brushing. That really is what it comes down to. So I'm trying something here. Starting high and working down, that'll catch most of the red pigment on a higher surface, giving it a kind of a light on top look. Let's see. I'm gonna have to remember this technique. It's given a real nice kind of dappled look. Oh, let's go back to this kind of detail brush. See if we can touch up some highlights. Okay, this is looking better. Okay, 15 minutes, you know what? I think I'm gonna try to get his underside all coated down. Why am I doing this with still red on my brush? Good grief. Clean your brush. Catching this underside parts is a difficult angle. And once I get this done, the whole thing will be base coated. And I'll be able to start working on more detail stuff, but probably in a different stream or off stream. I'll definitely be posting pictures of this once it's done. I've got an Instagram where I post all that type of stuff. Oh man, these angles are killing me. Reaper miniatures. I know it's dynamic, but this is a pain to reach. Whew. There's dragon, where I need to put my brush to get this angle. Excuse me. I don't want to be dabbing like this with my brush, but it's the only way I can really get into these cracks. Okay, how do I get... Jeez. You know, I stopped printing models on bases for this exact reason. I'm tempted to cut the base off of this guy just so I can reach. Super glue is an amazing thing. Cut off, put it back on. Brush is getting a little too loaded. Oof, I have unfortunately worn off a lot of paint where this has been rubbing against my desk. Where I think most of this can be pretty easily cleaned up. Same on these top sides. There we go. Well, we're just about base coated. There's a lot of little holidays and such, but there's only so much you can do about those. And I mean, well, you can do a lot about them, and it's really easy. You just have to do it kind of in your touch-up stage, which is what I'm planning to do. There. Yeah, let's just get these claws real quick. Oh man. No, there's another section I missed. Ah, jeez. How am I supposed to paint these sections? Okay, sorry if you can't really see anything. Kinda need the special angle to see what I was doing. Not gonna lie, it's hard to keep up a commentary for 2 hours while also trying to focus on painting. And we could always talk about religion and politics, but, you know, that never ends poorly, does it? No, never. So next time, I think I'm done once I'm done with these claws. I need to come up with a way to lighten these into the appropriate color, because this kind of muddy orangey brown is perfect for a base coat, but I need to lighten it. So kind of the same way that I started with that purple here and then layered on red, I need to do the same. Kind of like as I did in the front here. But I want to get something a little more shiny, maybe something going towards more of a yellow, kind of a canvas color. Maybe that's where the OTO color comes in. Okay, I think what we're going to do is basically just use up some of my other colors so I don't waste paint. But that's just also what kind of happens. Go. My hope is that this face will eventually lighten up as much to like the rest of the body. But I don't even know what paint my friend used, so. Well, I think we're gonna call it there for today. We may pick this up in another stream, or I'll just finish it off camera and then post pictures of it. But there you go. Thanks for hanging out, those of you who did. And thanks for sticking with me with this. Definitely ran some paint difficulties early on. But yeah, have a good rest of your day.